revision of Unit 1. See if we get anybody coming in. I don't even know if I've done this right, but anyway, so Unit 1, we have got nearly all the case studies in Unit 1, and I'm just going to go through them so you can watch this a bit later. So case studies in Hazardous Earth, which is the first chapter, we have got for hurricanes, we've got Bangladesh and we've got the USA. So we've got Bangladesh for an LIC and the USA for a HIC. So we've got those two. So make sure you know causes of hurricanes and cyclones. Make sure you know impacts, short-term and long-term. Make sure you know management strategies and whether they are effective or not. So make sure you know all of that for your two places, for your Bangladesh and for your America, for the USA. The second lot we've got is for tectonics. Now you either have to learn earthquakes or volcanoes. You don't need to learn the case studies for both. So I would suggest learning the earthquakes because they're easier and you've got more to write. So it's Haiti for the LIC and Japan for the HIC. Again, make sure you know causes, make sure you know impacts, make sure you know primary and secondary impacts, make sure you know management for the two places. And for all of those, remember for your assess questions, you're looking at how effective management is, or what was the biggest cause of the destruction, etc. For the assess questions, which I've already done a video on, make sure that you are assessing and make sure you're saying which factor had the biggest impact or which reason it was made the earthquake worse in one place or another, or which management strategy worked better or which didn't work. So make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're using that language as well. You're not just describing the management strategies and explaining them, you're evaluating them. You're saying whether they worked or not. So that's how you're getting your 8 marks or close to your 8 marks. In development dynamics, we had Malawi came up last year and it looked at colonialism and neo-colonialism. Some of you might have had that for your mock. So again, make sure that you just go over those. I don't think it will come up for an 8 marker again, but it could come up for a 4 marker to talk about terms of trade or neo-colonialism, colonialism, the World Trade Organization, cash crops, etc. So make sure you know all about that. And they are talking about how Malawi has stayed underdeveloped. That's what that bit's about. It's why Malawi hasn't developed. Okay, so make sure you know as many reasons, physical and human, as possible. Hi! So make sure you know that. So that is for Malawi, and that is a developing country. Okay, so the next one that we've got is India, and make sure again that you know, hi Sarah, make sure that you know about India. Make sure that you know that it's an emerging country. And for India, there's lots of different things that they could ask you. They could ask you about TNCs and how TNCs have improved the country, either from a social, economic or environmental, and we'll get to that again in a minute. They could ask you about globalization, which is a very similar question. They could ask you about top-down, bottom-up strategies. So the top-down in this unit is your dam. That's the one that's in the book, the Sardar Sarovar Dam in India. So make sure you know that. It's not in Mumbai or anything, so don't get mixed up with Mumbai here, because Mumbai is in the next unit. But this has helped India to develop because it's given them a more regular source of electricity that attracts TNCs. Now, make sure you know about globalization, which again is TNCs. Make sure you know about call centers, etc. Oh, doing A-level now, no worries. I do have some A-level content that I'll be posting soon about Unit 3 and about command words, so stay tuned for that and stay subscribed. Yeah, so India is an emerging country. Make sure you know how different strategies have had an impact on India in terms of social. Hi Jasmine. Make sure you know how the population has changed. So it can actually, oh, great. I'm glad you got a 9. Brilliant. And I'm glad I helped. So make sure you know about India. Make sure you know about how the population has changed. Make sure you know about how people are moving from rural areas to urban areas, how maybe that they're starting to have less children because there's more opportunities for women. but also life expectancy would increase. So overall, population may increase a little bit in the shorter term, because as you've got the population going down in birth rate, you have got a longer life expectancy. So just be a bit careful with that. Make sure you know the term demographics means population. If it asks you about demographic change, it means how has the population changed, so the age and birth rate and death rate, etc. Make sure you know that. Also make sure that you know about India's position on the world stage. That could come up. I think it might have been a little while since that one's come up. So that's talking about how India is part of the G20. It's got some issues with its neighbours. It's got issues in Kashmir. It's got issues with China. It's part of the G20, like we said. It's part of the IMF. It gives loans to countries, especially in East Africa. So it's got a better position on the world stage, which is obviously helping it. I don't know what that question means. I didn't even know Primrose Kitten was doing geography, but there you go, good for her. Yeah, make sure you know a little bit about that as well. Make sure you know about the problems in India in the future. So population increase, water problems, environmental problems from all of the TNCs, etc. So they could be your bigger 8 markers on India. So in the urbanized world, you have got just one big case study here, which is Mumbai, and you're looking at top-down, bottom-up strategies. And the top-down strategy is Vision Mumbai, which isn't that great for local people. It's good for the economy, but not good for the people in Dharavi, because they just want to get rid of Dharavi because it's in quite a central place. From an economic point of view, it will improve, I suppose, the amount of investment that comes in, but not for the local people, because obviously regeneration tends to gentrify an area and doesn't generally help with poorer populations or poorer elements of the population. Make sure you know that bottom up. We've actually done a couple of different bottom up projects here. We've done a couple in Rio. So we've looked at self-help housing, and another one called Project Favela, which is about giving younger children opportunities to go to school. Teaching them football, and if they go to school, they get football training. And there's a little bit about clean water there. And in Mumbai itself, you have got recycling schemes. You've got spark toilets, which are they're the smaller scales, and you've got the health initiative about leprosy, and then the larger one is obviously your top down is Dharavi. So they're your basic case studies in Unit 1. Make sure, like I said, that when you're answering the 8 markers, that you are evaluating, not just explaining what the strategy is. It's really important that you evaluate the strategy, say whether it's working or not working. Hi, Caitlin. Whether it's positive or negative, whether it's having a good impact or not a good impact, and really making sure that you're going back and answering that question at the end of each paragraph. So when you make a point, make sure you explain your points. That's a bit of AO1, but then your AO2, where you're getting your marks, is evaluating that strategy. So please make sure that you've done that. Make sure, like I said, some of the key terms there, make sure you know for Malawi that you know in development dynamics that you know terms of trade. You know what that is. That poor terms of trade means that you buy more than you sell. Yeah, physical geography is a pain. You're absolutely right. I'll do another video on that. And there's also videos already done on those as well, on the different units. If you go back into some of the lives, etc., you'll see some of those. What else? Make sure you know about sustainability in this unit as well, for development dynamics and for urbanisation. So sustainability means that the strategy not only does good for the people now, but is good in the future. So Vision Mumbai isn't really good for the poorer people, or the people who are less economically active, who are living in the slums. So it's not necessarily very sustainable, that one. And then your dam, obviously, it's a pro and con there, really. So it's sustainable in the way that it provides green energy, but maybe not so in terms of destroying farmland and land that belonged to some of the people who lived in the rural areas. So there's kind of pros and cons to both, but just bear in mind the fact that they could ask you about sustainability of the projects, whether those projects are going to be good for people in the future. If there's anything else you want to go over, please type it in now. There's about 18-20 of you here. So if you just give me a quick message, if there's anything else in particular that you're not sure of. I'll be honest, I'm not really very good at predictions, because what you'd have to do is you'd have to look at what's been asked before. I know that I don't think Malawi will come up again as the 8 marker. I think it'll be back to India, because that was a bit left field, that one. So it could be Malawi's, India's position in the future. Yeah, Sarah, the fieldwork, I think I might just go over some fieldwork stuff in another video. I won't do it in this one because I wanted to stay with Unit 1, but I will do the other one. That is in Unit 2, Paper 2, remember. So I will do another one. That's not till after half term as well, so you'll get a bit of a chance to revise a little bit more of that. Don't worry too much about the fieldwork though, because it is only worth limited marks. And with some of the maths questions that you might be able to answer, and some common sense, you should be able to get away with quite a few marks. And if you only just got half marks, then you've only lost 4 or 5 marks, really. Any other questions for Unit 1? Anything? Hazardous Earth. Make sure you know your trisecular model. Don't worry too much about all that stuff on kind of air circulation, etc., because you only get short answer questions on that. But yeah, definitely, Sarah, don't worry too much about your field work. If you're not that sure about it, I'd spend more time revising Paper 3. London regeneration, yep, that's Paper 2. I can start talking about Paper 2 if there's no questions on Paper 1. So Paper 1, just make sure you know all your key terms. Make sure you know what demographics means. Make sure you know about social impacts. Make sure you know terms of trade. Make sure you know urbanized world. Yes, so urbanized world, let me have a look. So yeah, urbanized world is basically about how cities grow, rich and poor. So you're looking here about why countries grow over time. So let me just find this one from the beginning. So yeah, we're looking at mega cities, and there is a section, Jasmine, there is no, there's not really a large section on volcanoes. You'll get asked a few shorter questions, maybe on like types of volcano or types of lava, etc. But your big 8 marker will just say for a tectonic hazard, and you don't have to know what the case study is, so you'll be okay with that one. Colonial impact on India. Yeah, I think you do. I'm just looking at that colonial. Oh, that's in development dynamics. So let's have a look. When we get to India, I think what we'll say in India is, let me have a look. It doesn't talk an awful lot about India's growth, to be honest, in terms of colonialism. I would suggest that, obviously, I would treat it as you would any question on colonialism, of the fact that colonialism and neo-colonialism hindered the country's development, because the colonial power took land and took power from the people. So the growth of India may have been slower than expected, but you do have the opposite. It's, I suppose, a little bit of an argument that perhaps colonial power brought some advantages, but I would suggest that colonial power slowed down India's own development. So I would suggest that colonial power in India did the same as it did in Malawi, that it took land, it exploited the people, and that's what neo-colonialism does. So you could get asked on TNCs, which is neo-colonialism. So I would suggest that you say that neo-colonialism has exploited the workers, has meant that TNCs come in and they open the company there. So they take profit out of the company. So it means that Indian companies are under greater pressure because TNCs have a lot of money. So Indian companies don't earn a lot of money. So that's what I would say. Primary and secondary impacts for tropical storms. Primary impacts for tropical storms would be flooding, be landslides, and it would be high winds. Okay, so that's your primary impacts. And we did have a question last year to say, to what extent was flooding the primary impact? So if we get a question to what extent, it wants other factors. So we'll give you a factor and it wants other factors. And it said, to what extent is flooding the biggest impact? And you had to say, Haiti and Florida. Yeah, Haiti and Florida are fine for the tropical storms. We just do Bangladesh. It's absolutely fine. So primary impacts will be destruction, high winds, flooding mostly, landslides, I just said high winds, and then secondary impacts may well be things like land being flooded for a large amount of time, so people lose any money that they would earn from growing crops. You could have that people were out of their homes for longer amounts of time and their homes aren't rebuilt. You could have that there's a problem with water supply, with contaminated water supply. People could die of disease, etc. So that will be your secondary impacts instead of primary. And then I thought I saw another question. Let me see, could I press that? Where is it? So colonialism is what happened in the past during the 1800s when the places like the UK went to foreign lands and took land. They exploited workers. Thanks, Yasmin. That's colonialism. So that was what happened in the past when a power went to another country and took over. Now, neo-colonialism is TNCs essentially. So TNCs, although they're not going over and taking land, the TNC is exploiting the workforce. It can take land as well. If it's a TNC that goes and exploits resources, then it will mine for the resources and it will pay the government a nominal amount, and the government will have to take that, and then the TNC will take the resources out of the country and sell them for a higher price. So that's neo-colonialism. If you get a question on that, it means TNCs or globalization. Somebody asked me, I don't know how to find the comments because I'm rubbish. It's like I'm an old lady. It's like your nan. Live chat, all messages are visible. Oh, there you go. Honestly, it's like your nan's online going, how do you work this? Any other questions? Nepal can be used for a case study. Yeah, it can. Doesn't matter which case studies you use. Just make sure that you know a LIC and a HIC. That's all you need to know. If you've got a revision book that talks about Nepal, use it. Haiti's a good one because it's got a lot of primary and secondary. So primary for Haiti will, in an earthquake anyway, would be the 310,000 people died, would be the thousands of dollars worth of damage of the buildings, the port was destroyed, etc. People were left, people were trapped in buildings, etc. The secondary impacts, remember, are when the aid workers came and about 8,000 people died of cholera. So the primary impacts are worse than the secondary impacts. When you look at Japan, the primary impacts were lower because most of the buildings in Japan are earthquake proof. So it was the secondary impact of the tsunami that caused the 21,000 deaths. So that's why that's a good example to use if you get asked about primary and secondary, or development and how levels of development have an impact. Any other questions? Let's have a look. I think that's all. Oh, storm surges. Yep. So Nikita does that. It's not Nikita, it's Nithka. Sorry, I've got my glasses on. I still can't see. It's a very small screen. So does that help with colonialism and neo-colonialism? And storm surges are caused through hurricanes, obviously. So a storm surge is when you have got high winds, normally, in a hurricane, and they're blowing on land. So you've got onshore winds. And because it's very low pressure, it kind of like lifts the ocean up a little bit. It gets like pulled up a little bit. And then because the winds are onshore, it pushes all of the water onshore. So that's a storm surge. So that's obviously one of your primary impacts of a hurricane, and that causes flooding. That's why that we had that question that said, does flooding have an impact on, is the flooding the main factor, or the main issue in hurricanes? Right, so let me just make sure you know BT as an example of outsourcing. That's what outsourcing is. It's a company that goes to another place and uses its labour in this instance. And it does that in India because Indian people speak English. They're very well educated. You've got about 300 million people who live in urban areas who are highly educated. They've got good qualifications and they speak English. So they can do these technological kind of tertiary, quaternary jobs. So that's part of the new economy, remember. So let's have a look. Population structure, I talked about that. Population can change. And often, from a social point of view, women get opportunities to work as well. We're talking about development dynamics now, aren't we? Somebody asked about urbanized worlds. I'm just going to go over that. Make sure you know what your world city is. A world city is not the same as a mega city. A mega city is over 10 million people. A world city is one that's got a disproportionate amount of power for its size. So it's got TNC headquarters, it's got bank headquarters, it's got major infrastructure. So it's got major train links and airports, etc. So London, Tokyo, Japan, New York, they're all world cities. So make sure you know what they are. Economic change, obviously know that you've got informal and formal. So you've got Uganda and Kampala, which has a lot of the informal sector. And then as the country develops a little bit, you go to the formal sector where people are taxed and get rights for working. Detroit is an example of a country that's going into a city that's going in decline because of deindustrialization, so make sure you know that. So when deindustrialization happens, it's got losers in richer countries because remember the global shift happened where the manufacturing went from richer places to poorer places. Urban economies differ, we've just said that there. You've got the formal versus the informal. Make sure you know about changes in New York, that can come up a little bit. So you've got the city starts to grow, people live in the centre, and then over time transport links get better. So what generally tends to happen is richer people move, and that's sometimes called white flight. And then you have maybe migration of people from colonies, especially maybe in the UK and America, and you're left with an area in the inner city that is socioeconomically more deprived because the richer people have moved out because there's good transport links. Push and pull factors in cities, make sure you know that. Push means what's pushed you away from the poorer place, maybe the rural area to the urban area. Structure of Mumbai, just make sure you know the site and situation of Mumbai. Site means exactly where it's located, so it's on the peninsula, on the coast. From a situation point of view, it's located kind of between China and kind of Africa, and those links through the Mediterranean. Dharavi is located in the centre, but generally the shanty towns or the slums are located in poorer areas of land. Mumbai's grown. Make sure you know about rich and poor. That's come up as an 8 marker before, about different life expectancies and quality of life in the city. So you've got different levels of quality of life. You've got people that live at the bottom, in the slums, and then you've got people in the middle, the kind of middle class people who just live in like low class housing, and then you've got richer people living in the gated communities and they live close to the centre. And then problems facing Mumbai, it's obviously pollution, waste, congestion, problems with housing, problems with healthcare, etc. So make sure you know all of those. And then sustainability, has Vision Mumbai helped? So has it helped the environment? Has it helped society? Has it helped the economy? Hasn't really helped society because it's only helped the richest. But you could argue it's helped with the environment because it has cleaned up the water supply. Now there is proper sanitation, etc. So you'd be looking at that. And that's about it really. So I'm going to go, unless we've got any other questions. I will do another one of these on paper 2, and then I'll do it on paper 3. Now if you're looking for work on paper 3, I've done one of these on paper 3. It's in the live section. I can't make it go into the normal playlists. I don't know how to do it. I don't think I can, but it is in that section. So there is a live that I did last year. It's about 25 minutes. And it's on paper 3. It's on all the topics in paper 3. So if you want to go over that, you can. I've also got other lives, which I think I've posted anyway. I think they are posted. And that is Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 1 and Unit 2, and they're in different sections. So if you want to have a look at that, please check those out. I've just done a video on assess, and I'll do another one on Unit 3, paper 3, on how to answer those DMA style questions. So have a good evening, and you may as well go, because I'll probably spend a few minutes trying to figure out how to stop videoing now, because I'm not very good at that. So have a nice evening, and I'll see my year 11s this week when we get back in. I don't think I have you tomorrow. I have you sometime. Bye. Bye, bye, bye.